thank you for clicking on this video because I'm a YouTuber now. I create content, I make videos. We're doing this, okay? I want to start off by saying, how are ya? Okay? I know we're on month 2 of stay at home, and seriously, how are you? Tell me about it. I just need that hour, you know, to go to the gym just a few times a week, okay? I know that sounds not great to some people, but there's massage chairs there, okay? And a tanning bed and my headphones, and there's not a toddler screaming at me half of the day. I'm just saying, it's a good place to be, okay? So I'm looking forward to that coming back. But how are y'all? Are y'all gaining the quarantine 15? Be honest, I'm up 5. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm up 5. It's happening. After this weekend, I'm probably having a Big Mac, so I'll be up 8. So let's be real. As from the title of this video, you probably know we're gonna talk about how did both of my kids end up having seizures. How did this happen? Short answer, I have a hostile uterus. Yeah, sounds crazy, right? I've never really been diagnosed with a hostile uterus, but that's what I call it. So, longer answer is, well, we kind of have to start at the beginning, right? With Grayson. First pregnancy, it was beautiful, okay? I was slightly nauseous for the first few weeks. And then I was great. I worked out the entire pregnancy. I did gain 50 pounds. Okay, so not great. I worked out to the week before I delivered, like all the way up. I was doing prenatal workouts. Body Fit by Amy on YouTube had incredible workouts to do that were easy, but yet I really felt like I could still, you know, be active. As the weeks dwindled down, he just didn't want to come out. And it really wasn't him so much as my body was just not letting him out. It didn't know what to do. So I got induced. It didn't work. They sent us home. Me and Grayson were both healthy, so they just sent us home and said, let's give it another week. Come to find out that the same thing happened with my mom and me. They induced her. It failed the first time. They sent her home. She came back a few days later, did it again. So knowing that, it made me feel like it wasn't too bad. The second induction, it works. But he comes out, and I did push for an hour and a half. And he finally made it out, and his head was so swollen, y'all. If I could insert a picture, I will, okay? But my editing is not where it is yet, okay? So, let me see what I can do. But his head was so, I mean, I know they said cone-shaped, y'all, but it was like a, you know, like a Tylenol pill on steroids, okay? Like, it was just this oblong thing. It was so swollen. So I know I had him that evening, and by that morning or overnight, early morning, a nurse had said something about his hand twitching, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then she's like, can you stop it? And it's like, and then it stopped. So she's like, okay, we'll keep an eye on that. I didn't know what that meant, obviously. So, but I know he was having a hard time. He was really fussy. Well, he was having seizures that whole time. So they take him with Grayson. His was a rhythmic seizure all around his body, and we couldn't get it to stop. It took 2 days, and they pumped him full of so much phenobarbital that the doctor said if she had that much phenobarbital, she would sleep for a week straight. So I don't know how much that is, but I'm guessing it's quite a bit. And his finally did stop on day 2. But I honestly believe his was caused from the swelling on his brain. I think Grayson's was a birth trauma. So they said Grayson lost oxygen or had a stroke at some point in utero. They could never really determine that, but that is what they ended up writing down. Like, that's what was the cause of his seizures. Once the swelling was going down on day 2, his did stop. He did stay on seizure medication for 6 months, but his never returned. So we had all the appointments that first year, child development and neurology. Grayson just as we kept going on, everything was working out. So it felt like this relief. And I obviously had some kind of postpartum anxiety or something. So I was very overprotective of Grayson. That maternal instinct is no joke, and when you feel that someone is taking your baby away from you, you just can't let them go after that. So fast forward 11 months later, I find out I'm pregnant again. I'm shaking and crying, and what if this baby has seizures too? That is my biggest fear. What if this baby has seizures too? With Gavin, it was the worst pregnancy. I mean, I threw up every single day for 7 months. 7 months. I went into labor at exactly 40 weeks. On the day he is due, I'm having contractions. And I'm like, this is crazy. Oh my gosh, this is happening. This baby is happening. And all those worries and fears were pushed to the back. Like, you can't live like that. I couldn't worry that something was going to happen to this baby. My focus is we have to get him out. So 40 weeks, one day, Gavin is born. I went into labor naturally. And, you know, I had one of those stories that you just want to punch some women right in the throat when they say they only had to push, you know, 3 times. I pushed 4 times. He shoots right out. I'm just kidding. But he came out. And I felt everything. It was this beautiful laboring experience. There was no swelling on his head. None. I mean, that is what everyone commented on with Gavin, is how perfectly round his head was. Which, come to find out, is because he has a small brain. But Gavin had like a little bit of jaundice, so they put him under a light. But we went home. Day 3, no big deal. He never had to go to NICU or anything like that. We come home with Gavin and everything's fine. Everything's fine. So I felt that relief, like you were crazy. Everything's fine. Look at this beautiful baby. He's so beautiful. And then when he was 7 weeks old, something was happening. And it looked like hiccups, and someone had commented about it to me, and I was like, okay, well, his hiccups are normal, so what do you mean it looked weird? And then that night I saw what she was talking about. So of course I'm on Google, Dr. Google, okay? And it's talking about reflux. Reflux, reflux, reflux. I'm like, okay, Erica, it's not seizures, it's reflux. Repeat again, Erica, it's reflux, not seizures. So as I continue down my spiraling path of reflux, it's talking about how reflux is misdiagnosed for seizures. And I'm like, oh my gosh. My husband gets home and he tries to calm me down. Never ignore your instincts, because let me tell you, mine are always right when it comes to these boys. Always right. So the next morning, it happened again, and I said, he's having seizures. I completely lost it, had a full-on meltdown at work, but I went over to my in-laws where he was staying while I'm at work, and I take him to Children's Hospital in Plano, and I tell him my son's having seizures. My first son also had seizures. They put him on phenobarbital. So they catch one of the seizures. They instantly put him on phenobarbital, and his seizures stopped. They run all the tests. We were admitted to the hospital for 3 days, 2 or 3 days. They run all the tests, and they found a brain injury. So an old brain bleed, which really freaked me out, right? Because I didn't know what that means. Like, why did he have a brain bleed? I haven't dropped him. I haven't done any, like, nothing's happened in these few 7 weeks. Like, he's been fine. So they said it probably happened in utero or during birth. He had a stroke or lost oxygen at some point. So that is the common denominator. How did my kids both have a stroke or lose oxygen in utero or during birth? How does that happen? Which is why I say I have a hostile uterus, because how did it do this to both babies? The neurologist comes in, and I asked him, how did both of my kids, like, you're telling me this is a coincidence that both of my kids have seizures? And he's like, I know it sounds crazy, but yes. And then the pediatrician on the floor comes in, tells us that Gavin's seizures were not caused by that old brain injury, that he has something called polymicrogyria. And she said, I don't know a lot about it. We don't know how it's going to affect him, but you need to know that this will affect him for the rest of his life, and it will show itself over time. So we were very confused because the neurologist just said this was a coincidence, but then she's like, no, we spoke with him and the radiologist, and we all agree that it's polymicrogyria. It's a brain malformation, and we know it's for sure affecting one side of the brain, which we find out later it's affecting both sides. So even though both of my kids had a stroke or lost oxygen at some point in utero or during birth, the difference is Gavin has this brain malformation. But the seizures had stopped at that point. So we went home on a seizure medication. He's going to be on it for the next 6 months. You know, in our heads, we're like, okay, it's the same thing as Grayson. Like, he was 7 weeks old at that point. At 4 months old is when the spasms started. And instantly I saw it. And I'm like, he's having seizures. Let's go. So when the spasms started, I took him to Children's. We were in the emergency room and they sent us home. They said, okay, your son may be having seizures, but he sees a neurologist for seizures. So you need to call your neurologist. So I called the neurologist. We had to spend a couple days at home, and they kept increasing his medicine and stuff. And I'm sending videos like, this is different. Y'all are not understanding. This medicine is not helping whatever seizure this is. Eventually, they were trying to fast track us to just being admitted into the hospital, but something wasn't connecting there. They get us in there, and they are going to set us up for the 48-hour EEG. We get admitted. The neurologist comes in, and he's like, I watched the EEG. It's not spasms. He goes, I was really worried about that on the drive over. He goes, but I looked at it, and it's not there. So I'm like, okay, what is it? Because they're not stopping. At that point, they were happening multiple times a day. And each cluster has, 40 to 50, seizures in it, or drops, or I'm not even sure how they classify it. But first thing that morning, I'm talking, I don't even know what time, 7 a.m., the neurologist is back in there, and he had this look on his face that just, it scared me. I mean, I guess it needed to, because he had something to tell me. And he was like, I was really hoping you weren't going to be alone. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on? And he tells me he watched the hypsarrhythmia and the spasms in his brain. Like, he watched it develop overnight. So whether or not I believe that he watched it develop overnight, we got the infantile spasms diagnosis. His is caused by polymicrogyria, and all we can ever hear is that polymicrogyria causes all these other things. It itself, I don't even think is really a diagnosis. It's just a description of the brain. So polymicrogyria, PMG, which is why I'm going to be PMG mama, because this word has changed my whole life. It's changed everything. And it's going to continue to show up in Gavin's life. And we don't know what that means. It's a wait and see. So that's why both my kids have seizures. They both lost oxygen or had a stroke in utero or during birth that caused a birth trauma, a brain trauma. Gavin's showed up later in life. Why it waited 7 weeks to show up and Grayson started within the first 24 hours, I don't know. I don't know if it was the swelling on his brain. I think so, but I'm not a doctor and nobody will confirm that for me. And the difference is Gavin has polymicrogyria. I don't know why Gavin has a brain malformation. I may have had a virus at the end of my pregnancy. I did I was treated for a sinus infection, but I wasn't tested or anything. I just had green mucus. So they gave me antibiotics in my 3rd trimester. But it's during that peak time of brain development. So that virus definitely could have caused it. But there's no way for us to know. I was never tested for, I think it's called CMV. And I think it is linked to brain development and infantile spasm. So, but I wasn't tested, obviously. He wasn't sick when he was born. He wasn't tested. And here we are, living my biggest fear. What I thought was my biggest fear was this baby having seizures, and he has seizures, and then some, and we can't even stop that. This is worse than my biggest fear. And yet I have this beautiful life. That is why I'm making this channel. I want to bring awareness to childhood epilepsy, infantile spasms, polymicrogyria, child development. You know, I want to share my journey with it, bring y'all along for it. And this video is just to help y'all understand how I got to where I am today. All of this crazy was not born overnight, okay? It was born through 2 years of pregnancies and extra years of doctor's visits and neurologists and all the things. Sometimes I think I have a tumor. I really do. My head hurts all the time. I might have a tumor. Okay, I need to see a neurologist, but I can't because I have to keep taking my kids, you know? So that's another part of this channel. Okay, self-care. Don't forget to take care of yourself. And I'm going to take you along for that. I'm going to show you what I do. I have good days. I have bad days. I really do. And I want to try to share that, to be honest with people, that it is okay to have bad days. And sometimes I just have to be in that. But this is what I'm here for. This was my purpose in life, was to be their mother. So that's it. That's all I got to say. It is Good Friday here in my world, and I'm going to say it is a very good Friday. I had a nap in the middle of the day. That never happens. Never happens, okay? But it's Good Friday, and we nap in the middle of the day. So I'm going to go downstairs, get ready for my group workout with my Zoom ladies, okay? And we're going to enjoy this, and I hope everyone had a beautiful Easter Sunday. I know we're not all with our families right now, but I hope you have a beautiful day, and remember the reason for the season, okay? It's not Reese's peanut butter eggs, but they're delicious, and may have been a few of those 5 pounds. You know, we'll talk about this in another video, okay? I'll see y'all next time.